Hey everybody, it's Daniel here from Mobile Syrup, and today we are looking at the Samsung Galaxy Mega. And you can see here, this is a huge device. Now, there's not a lot of context here, so we're going to want to give you some comparisons down the road, but let's just look at it now and just see how massive this is. This is 6.3 inches diagonal. It's got a 720p display. It's got 1.7 gigahertz dual core Snapdragon S4 processor. It's got a 1.5 gigs of RAM, and other than that, it's pretty Samsung standard fare. You have this glossy back here with this material, and you can see, we can give it a wipe, and I left it, with fingerprints on purpose, but you can give it a wipe, and you can see that it's pretty, sensitive to fingerprints, but it's very Samsung standard. You have your home button here, your menu and back button in the standard Samsung place. You can see here you have your 8 megapixel camera. You've also got the power button a little bit further down on the on the device on the right side, and volume rocker on the left. And if we take off this back, you can see here that the SIM card and micro SD slots are actually right on top of each other. And then you have a 3200 milliamp hour battery. You have a speaker at the bottom here. You have NFC built in. So it's pretty much a normal Samsung phone, except for the fact that they're launching this as sort of a tablet phone hybrid. And that's kind of the most interesting part here. So let's take a look at what you have. So you come in here and you have like the standard Samsung experience, I would say. You have your, this is very similar to what you'd find on TouchWiz on the Galaxy S4. You have your camera app, your Samsung apps here, your email, you have your internet. Let's go here because I wanted to show you something that's very interesting. So if I go to Mobile Syrup, actually let's just go to TELUS's website. Now I can hover over the screen here and actually zoom in on what's on the screen. Now there's a lot of different features included here, and it's fairly kind of common to anybody who's used a Galaxy S4 in the past. You have different settings here for your display. But more interesting here are some of the features that kind of toe the line between tablet and phone. And you can see here you have your motion gestures, so you can use similar things to what you found on the Galaxy S3 that have just been improved since. You can, for example, mute or pause media or a phone call by just flipping it over, for example. You can move an item by tilting, things like that. Also, you can use the screen. You can use your palm to capture what's on the screen just by swiping over. Other things include the ability to swipe over the screen for air view. So lots of interesting things here, but this is fairly common to anybody who's used a Samsung device in the past. Now this comes with 16 gigs of storage, and out of the box you have about 9.94 gigs, so a little bit more than what you found on the Galaxy S4, but not that much. You can see actually now there's a system memory amount here, which is interesting because that kind of lets Samsung off the hook. It says this is how much the system is using, and this is what's left over, and then you can go in here and you can delete miscellaneous files. When you go into something like the camera, for instance, this is an 8 megapixel camera, and when asked, Samsung told me that it's very similar to what you'd find on the Galaxy S4, the Galaxy S3, but the actual UI is very similar to the Galaxy S4. So you have all these features here, you have all these different modes that you can swipe between, but the quality itself is probably not going to be the same as on a Galaxy S4. Now the 8 megapixel camera as well, it looks fairly similar, and the the front-facing camera as well. Nothing really differentiating, but it's just the size of this device, the sheer size and weight of it. It's very hefty, and compared to, say, something like the Galaxy S4, you can see here it's very, very large. So we have a comparison between the two devices. Now you can see the design language is virtually identical. So you have a 5-inch display here, 6.3-inch display over here, but the layouts of practically everything, even the power buttons are identical, but this one is just comparatively lowered down to make it easier to turn on with one hand, because if it was up here, you'd have to adjust your phone. But it's really, really similar. Everything about these two devices is extremely similar, and it just speaks to the unified design language that Samsung's taking across all of its Galaxy devices. We wouldn't be surprised to see the Galaxy Note 3 looking very similar to the Galaxy Mega, just a little bit smaller. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, we're still working on this device. Obviously, the battery life is something that's going to be a huge factor here, but just the way that it works in your life, whether it fits in your pocket, something like that, that's something that we really are interested in taking a look at and dissecting, because after using it for a few minutes, it does come across as just unnecessarily big. It's a very, very, very large phone. You can see here, even when we're typing a message, the keyboard, even with this extra row of numbers on top, is massive. So it makes for very, very spacious writing as well. You can safely watch videos on here and do everything that you would on a tablet on a smartphone. The difference here is that Samsung's marketing this at a much lower price point than something like the Galaxy S3, or sorry, Galaxy S4 or the Galaxy Note. And when we see the Note 3 launch later this year, it'll be significantly cheaper than the Galaxy Mega. So this is something that Samsung's doing to enter the mainstream mid-range market. The Samsung rep that I spoke to even compared this to somebody walking into a Rogers or Telus or Bell store and wanting a Galaxy Ace or Galaxy Ace 2, that really small Samsung device, and instead walking out with something like this, where they can use this as both a tablet and a smartphone. So we'll see how that works down the road. I don't know if it's really going to be that effective, since this is way too big for the average user's hand. But if somebody's really looking to use it as a crossover device, we definitely recommend it. Other things included are, obviously, we have the ability to use multi-window. So I have, I can do Chrome up here, and then I can do gallery down here. But unfortunately, things like, you can't go to a web page yet and drag, or I can't drag a photo into this window, or I can't drag an image into the gallery. So there's a little limited amount of multitasking here, but overall you have a very, very capable large device with a great screen. You can see the viewing angles are pretty good. Speed is comparable to any modern device despite the dual core processor. The RAM might be a little bit of an issue down the road, but that's something that we are going to have to investigate in the full review. So this has just been a quick overview of the Galaxy Mega 6.3. It's coming soon to Canada on many, many carriers, most carriers in fact, and you should be able to find this for around $100 on a 2-year contract. So this has been Daniel from Mobile Syrup, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.